until they hear it starting to crack. Now, Prabhupada said that about his Western disciples. I'm one of the Western disciples, by the way. But I didn't do this. He said, you Western devotees, you take risks going out on a branch and waiting till you hear the branch crack and then you run back to the trunk. So don't be so foolish like this. So repression with anger doesn't help, and it can lead to depression or passing on that negative emotion to others. So supposing you're in an atmosphere, sometimes it happens, where you have or others around you are having some negative emotion experience. What should you do? How should you process your emotions or be of assistance to others who are processing theirs? So we're not going to do this. It says brainstorm. We're going to move forward to the power of acceptance. And it's just a tip or a tool or a methodology of when negative emotions happen. Sometimes they happen. The rising sun is the night is over, and the troubling experience that you're undergoing is going to end at some point in time. So it's patient. So there's unhealthy responses, and that's like it's just not there. Close your eyes and it'll go away, or tucking the emotions under the rug, inflating them or ignoring them are neither are recommended. If you maintain resentment towards someone or something or some situation, then you get locked into that negative emotion. Some people have described it to me as like the thought just keeps coming and they push it away, the thought comes, they push it away, the thought comes, the thought comes, the thought comes. Like an obsession about something. So one of the first things in this acceptance is emotions are temporary. Classic. Romance. I can't live without you. Statistics show 8 months later, I can't live with you. So romance has its cycle. And the purpose of being together with people is not just romance. It's another purpose besides the romance. Now, regarding the temporary nature of things, just like Chicago is a good place for this example, when there's snow, I mean, some people stay home, but most people, they go about their business. They go to work or they do what they have to do. Just like the weather may be kind of bad, we make our best effort to go forward anyways. And similarly, when there's bad weather emotionally, what's the real purpose of what you're doing anyways? Is it the moment to moment, am I feeling good, am I not feeling good? So we have, in other words, a higher purpose of your life. It can be a short-term goal, it can be an intermediate goal, it can be a long-term goal. And when you have something that's very important to you, you move forward with that something that's very important to you. Despite the temporary nature, this is the emphasis of the temporary nature. We tolerate the environmental weather and emotional weather. Because, so tam tatikshu sabharata, that there's a higher purpose. Bhagavad Gita teaches us this, right? I'm looking at you, not behind you. Do you know the verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna teaches this? Say it again. Yes. There it is. the verse is, the Sanskrit? Matra Sitoshna Sukha Dukkha Da. You know what Sukha means? Happiness, Sukha. And Dukkha? Distress. Sukha Dukkha Da. Very good. Matra Sparshas. Because the sensation of something arises from sense perception. That's sparsha. Matra sparshas tu konteya sitoshna sukha dukkha da. Agama payo nityas. You know what the next line is? Very good. And tatiksha means tolerate, right? So sometimes it's, and the image is meant to show, sometimes it's summer. And sometimes it's winter. So there's the verse. Just like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons, they arise from sparshas, from sense perception, O sign of Bharata, tatiksha. One should learn to tolerate them. So this is the acceptance principle. Sometimes things are not so good. Such a great picture. For example, we can't go for a nice picnic arranged with friends due to the flu. Boo-hoo. There can be resentment. Oh, there's this reality. I don't accept the reality. So the resentment can be more hurtful than the reality. Just accept. It's just the way it is. Reluctance to accept in itself causes negative emotions. And even worse, physical sickness, or becoming a bully, or sawing the branch and it starts to crack. And a nice saying from Mother Teresa. Everyone knows who Mother Teresa is. Some people come in our life as blessings. Some come in your life as lessons. So count your blessings. Because there's also lessons. You know, how to grow internally beyond the temporary. And become internally strong because there's a higher purpose in life. Some people say that acceptance is disempowering. You become weak. Actually, acceptance takes a lot of strength. Resigning to fate as if defeated. These are good images. I like them. However, acceptance allows us to move forward in our lives rather than dwelling on past events. Or it takes inner strength. You know, where am I going? Here's an obstacle. Here's an unpleasant experience. Here's an emotion connected to the unpleasant experience. But I have something far greater to accomplish in my life. Let me stay focused on that something that's far greater for me to accomplish in my life. Nice example. As far as I understand, from his birth, he wasn't a normal child, and he grew up. You know, he could just be resentful. In Atlanta, I met this nice family. The mother had to bring her son in a wheelchair, and she came up afterwards and explained. He had a big smile the whole time. He has muscular dystrophy. And I've heard about it, but I don't understand so much about what it is. But, you know, a year before this happened, he was running around and playing and, bouncing a ball and doing things that boys like to do. And then the thing hit, and then he's in a wheelchair. Likely he'll be in a wheelchair the rest of his life, and he can be resentful, or he can be accepting. And then with the physical impairment, is there what else can one do, or what's the positive thing that one can do once that circumstance can be a negative emotion is surpassed. What's the mission awaiting for you to be fulfilled? This is Viktor Frankl's words. I don't know if that's in this slideshow. Is it in this slideshow? No? Looking around the room. Some of you, how many here know when you hear the name Viktor Frankl, it means something to you? Okay, a small number. Viktor Frankl he became a celebrity, but during some part of his life, he had a very, very difficult circumstance. He was a Jewish man who was in a Nazi concentration camp for several years. It was pretty restrictive. And there's nothing he could do about the circumstance. And one of the things that so after the war was over and he's now free, he wrote a book which he was composing in his mind while he was in the concentration camp. And the title of the book is Man's Search for Meaning. You know why the bad things happen to good people? You've heard that one? You've not heard that one? Some behind you, you've heard of that one. Yes? You don't know what it means? Well, sometimes you're good and sometimes misfortune comes your way. Like, why did that misfortune thing come your way? Because I'm good. I've been good and good and good, and here comes this bad thing. So why is it? Why do bad things sometimes happen to good people? Well, he was a good person, but he took it that the purpose for him being in that circumstance was to prepare him when he's out of the circumstance to help people who are in circumstances. There's nothing they can do about the circumstance. When you're in a concentration camp, there's nothing you can do. You got to have all kinds of negative emotions about the circumstance and the people that put you in the circumstance and all that stuff. But you can't, doesn't change the circumstance. So now what? So he writes, like besides, why do bad things happen to good people? His message was a little different. That there's a freedom that nothing or no one can take from you. It's intrinsic to the soul, in other words. And that is your right to choose your way in any circumstance of life. So his choice was, by profession, he was a psychiatrist, if I understood correctly. And his idea was to help people on the other side of that circumstance, how to deal with the emotions that come from circumstances. There's nothing they can do. Nothing they can do. One of the lessons that Srila Prabhupada taught was exactly that, because I've been speaking regularly about the light of the Bhagavad. One of the circumstances that he faced when living in Delhi is the blistering hot summers, and that's what's going on now, heat wave, and in the very cold winters. Nothing you can do. I mean, you can dress warmly, and they have to tolerate. And the force that helped Prabhupada tolerate was he had a mission. And the mission was the mission given to him by Bhaktisiddhanta. And he was doing other things in relating to that mission, like writing. But the writing was to enhance his writing skills and also bring the message of Krishna to others. And that was his shelter. It wasn't, whether it's hot or whether it's cold. Same with the Bhagavad Universe. But the principle of negative emotions that arise due to circumstances, there's nothing we can do. So you can try to change the circumstance, but there's some circumstances you can't change. And then what? So one of the nice teachings in this nice book, Man's Search for Meaning, is each one of us should identify something that's a calling for you, or a gift that Krishna has given to you, and how you can use that gift that Krishna has given to you. Like you have a couple of them. Singing is one. Bhagavad Gita slokas is another. There's probably a whole bunch of other ones. Now, how can you use that? It's a gift that Krishna has given you. How can you use that? Now, supposing you want to sing nicely and the mridanga player starts speeding up. Did you notice? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. I'm not picking on you. He'll tell his mother later, why was he picking on me? It's to learn. That's why. So, if there's a higher purpose in your life, it doesn't have to be like, going back to Godhead. It can be going back to Godhead. There could be some more intermediate goals, and something that's meaningful to you, and you absorb yourself in that something that's meaningful to you. Then it makes it much, much easier to tolerate circumstances there's nothing you can do about. Or supposing you don't have that higher purpose, the circumstances make everything. Correct? It's easy to understand. Classic. There's Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit. When Maharaj Pariksit heard that he was going to die in 7 days with the bite of a snake bird, he could have done all kinds of things. Screamed. He could have done all kinds of things. He just accepted it, and by his acceptance, it ended up in the greatest blessing. Not only Shukadeva Goswami came, but by hearing from Shukadeva Goswami, by the end of those 7 days, he was saying, whatever that mystical snake bird thing is that's going to come and kill me, let it come, because right now my mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that which was, could have been like a really bad negative emotion experience, it ended up being something greatly fortunate. Now, I understand here in Naperville, along with many other places in ISKCON, there's a nice effort to try to learn Prabhupada's books, Bhakti Shastri study and things like that, right? Yes? Yes. Good. Stay with it, everybody. There's probably something going on for the children also, the younger ones. A little lighter weight, but in principle. So there's a devotee I know who teaches Bhakti Shastri for the past, 15, 16 years. His name is Adi Purusha. And I wasn't there for his visit, but he visited in the Potomac Temple with the idea of doing like a mini, kind of a comprehensive Bhakti Shastri. And this was his presentation. It wasn't a PowerPoint, but he was saying the message of Bhagavad Gita is acceptance, and this text came from him. When we don't accept an undesired event, it becomes anger. That's a negative emotion, right? When we accept it, it becomes tolerance. That's not a negative emotion, that's a nice one. When we don't accept uncertainty, it becomes fear. That's a negative emotion. When we accept it, it becomes adventure. Notice it's repeating itself. Acceptance, it changes the negative emotion. When we don't accept others' bad behavior towards us, it becomes hatred. When we accept it, it becomes forgiveness. When we don't accept others' success, it becomes jealousy. When we accept it, it becomes inspiration. So, acceptance is good. it can transform a negative emotion to something positive. Acceptance is the key to handling life well. That's the conclusion. And in Bhagavad Gita, it's known as surrender. That's what he's saying, Adipurusha is saying. That's Bhagavad Gita's message. Of course, he expanded it the way that he expanded it. So we spoke a little bit about having a goal, and then there's an idea that's floating around that there's measures of success. So should we do this in groups? Yes? Okay, this is an application exercise. Who said yes over there? Was that you? It was him. Okay, you better be a participant then. It says divide into two groups. How do we... pairs. Look around you, find a friend. And groups of three also works, but 2 or 3, and then in your little group, you can discuss what's success in today's world, and how many consider yourselves to be success based on standards in today's world, and how many consider themselves to be a failure. What is failure? And how many consider themselves to be failures? So how do we do this? We just do both.
One person can address the success part of the other person.
And if it's a group of 3, you toss a coin.
Or if you divide it, like, I mean, this is like...
And we could do that too. We could do that too. We're just going to do it this way. Yours, I was thinking,
Yeah.
but I looked at him because... Okay. Are you ready? Is it clear? Any questions about what our assignment is? Okay, there's going to stay on the screen. I'm not going to move the slide. One more minute. One more minute. Finish up your discussion. Okay, we let the horse loose. So that's, we could debrief, but I think just step back and why do we do what we just did? The topic, the big topic is overcoming negative emotion, and the key is acceptance, and then sometimes there's not acceptance. You know, there's a goal of success and failure, and that's non-acceptance. Supposing, just on the flight over here, I was in Atlanta, there's a group of ladies talking. Supposing I wanted to become a millionaire, like standard of success. And I got $1 million. And she looked at his friends and said, so what? Is that success? You know, so redefine what success is. It's a nice little, looking back at history, blips on a screen. If something, there was some failure, bump in the road. And today, you know, people are labeled as failures if they don't meet the standard of success of what everyone expects. The end of the road. There's some people in big places, they like labeling other people as failures. It's modern times. And, of course, it never happens in our social circles, but sometimes it happens that there's social pressures. There's expectations from relatives or family members or your parents or something, or society. Own property, buy a car, have children, high income, support your parents. And of course this is in Chinese. See? But so it's not just here. It's not just India. It's, you know, it's their social pressures. There's expectations that people have of you that success means fill in the blank. You know, it's one of the rules of parenting is don't do that. You can be encouraging to be your best, but apply social pressure. Whew, it happens. Social pressures and social status, which form conceptions around success and failure, inhibit the ability to be open to accept our life condition and our emotions related to our life condition. It's true. And not only is true, it's in Scripture. This is a very key verse from Brahma's prayers to Krishna after he made his big boo-boo, and he knew he was going to get some reaction for his boo-boo. But he decided that let the reaction come, whatever that may be. However, one thing is more important to me than the reaction or the degree of the reaction or whatever is going to happen is going to happen. That's the acceptance part. But then there's the dedication part, the higher purpose part. And the higher purpose is, let my mind not budge an inch from your 2 lotus feet. That was his prayer to Krishna. Celebrated verse. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, Vidvagvapurbir, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. It's a good verse to go to. It's a really good go-to verse when negative stuff happens and the emotions connected to the negative stuff happens and it seems oppressive. I mean, it happens. It happens. It's not unique. Everyone has that experience. In his purport for Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 13, Prabhupada writes, a pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does a devotee become his enemy's enemy. He thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds, so it is better to suffer than protest. You've heard that before? Of course you've heard that before. Let me remind you of what you've forgotten. Shakespeare in Hamlet. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. Celebrated line. To be or not to be? That is the question. In reading that this little section that Prabhupada wrote here, pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances. Not so long ago I heard a very nice story about Prabhupada being undisturbed by any circumstance. And there's so many examples, but one I heard recently I really like, and I'm going to share a Prabhupada story. We know that the story of the difficulty, the hardship that Prabhupada underwent to get on the Jaladuta and having his 2 heart attacks, and when he got to the other side, he didn't know he would live if he had another one. He didn't have another one. The captain of the ship said, I've crossed the sea many times. It was so peaceful compared to any other experience because of your presence on the ship. And Prabhupada got to the end of the gangplank, and he said, I didn't know whether to turn left or right. I don't know which way he turned. He went to Port Authority, got on a bus, and went to Butler, Pennsylvania, in the middle of nowhere. Stayed for some time, and then he was fixed on his mission. And then the early days when he didn't have any, he had 40 rupees, but you can't even use 40 rupees in India, in America. So he had nothing. And he went back to New York City with nothing. Who's going to go to New York City with nothing, right? With nothing. And for a whole year, nothing happened. He tried this, tried that, nothing happened. Then something happened. Well, he was having, there's a little place. It's not the apartment that he had, which is above the 26 Second Avenue storefront, but in between, he has a studio apartment. What's a studio apartment in New York City? It's like a matchbox. A little space where it's one room, and over there is a toilet, and over there is, the little counter that you use for a kitchen. And it was a place where he could invite people to come and hear Bhagavad Gita. So he prepared prasadam for some guests. And nobody came. But he wasn't discouraged. No negative emotion in Prabhupada's life. He recognized what it was. And somebody had given Prabhupada a reel-to-reel tape recorder. It's like one of those dinosaur things. It literally was a big reel and then another big reel, and he knew how to work it. So he sat down and gave a Bhagavad Gita class to the tape recorder. And I was told that recording was later transcribed, and that recording became the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, that now millions and millions and millions and millions of people have heard the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, when he had nothing. And he wasn't discouraged. Undisturbed by any circumstance. I don't know about all of you, but it doesn't seem very encouraging. But if you have a higher purpose, and you're very focused on what that higher purpose is, then the to be or not to be is not a big deal. You have your higher purpose. That's what you do. That's what you do. And when misfortune comes, or seeming good circumstance, because that's another challenge, seeming good circumstance comes, there's another story, application story. One young man, when he was in his 11th year of high school, he graduated from high school with a national award, not national, it's not a state award, but a national award in mathematics, and he went to the White House to get his award, whatever it was. And along with it was a full scholarship to MIT from his 11th year in school. And when I heard about it, and I visited their home, they said, congratulations. And with folded palm, very sincerely, he said, I have just one request. Please give me the benediction that I won't become proud. Because when good fortune comes, that's a big one. But supposing it's not a big one, supposing it's something. Supposing somebody compliments you for your nice singing. Supposing. And then you can think, a little bit in this, a little bit. Or you prepared a nice Sunday feast. Or something. Or something. And it's so easy to become an enjoyer of the good fortune, which is not meant for us, or become the sufferer of misfortune, which is not meant for us either, like Mother Teresa said. So, acceptance is a key to help these. There's a principle behind the acceptance, that's the higher purpose, but acceptance. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. That's the higher purpose. Okay, moving on. Power of goals. Well, I've already been speaking about goals, isn't it? So when you have a goal, then it's really good when you're going through an experience that's either plus or minus, you evaluate the emotion and right size the emotion. And the right size of the emotion should be in terms of your higher purpose. At least that's That's the Vaishnava lesson. In the perspective of our life's goal, how important is this particular event? Or the emotion connected to the event. And now we've got triggered. I know some people that have hair triggers, like you don't know when they're going to explode. You know some people like that? So it's okay. We don't reject them. We don't know when it's going to explode, but it's going to explode because they have hair triggers. And what are you going to do when it goes? Supposing it's not hair trigger, supposing they just something. So one of the lessons here is this a nice example. Supposing this happened. We're caught in traffic somewhere. I won't say where. And somebody in a BMW went zooming along in the aisle where you're not supposed to drive. What do you call that? The shoulder. Zoom, 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 zoom. And down the roadway, there's a police car in the shoulder. And the guy got out, and he started saying something really loudly to the police officer. And so I was thinking, wow, that guy's got a lot of nerve. And the driver said maybe he had an emergency that he was dealing with. And he wanted the officer to understand, officer, please let me proceed because there's an emergency. Anyway, sometimes there's emergencies and sometimes there's something. So supposing you're on the highway and it's a very serious situation, you got to get somebody to the hospital and somebody cuts you off. Now you could get angry and scream or say bad things, or you could just stay focused on getting the person to the hospital because that's what's important. When you're focused on something that's really important, this is the same, I'm repeating something spoken earlier, the circumstance or the negative emotion connected with the circumstance is much easier to overcome. Like the example of a river that's flowing to the ocean. There may be obstacles in the way of the river that's flowing to the ocean. What happens? The river keeps flowing to the ocean. And it's like Kunti's prayers. Remember that painting? We saw that painting yesterday, wasn't it? And there's the full picture of the painting, and there's from her mouth, as the Ganges flows forever downstream, that my mind forever flow unto you, whether there's good fortune or ill fortune. And then the emotion connected to the good fortune, ill fortune. And therefore, either, just become a devotee following the example of a great devotee like Mother Queen Kunti. Okay, here's a little goal exercise. What's your goal? Go back to Godhead. Yeah. Chant Kujapa. Okay. In this lifetime, what would you like to accomplish? You don't need to tell me. I'm looking at you because you're representing all these other young men right behind you. They see that I'm picking on you, and so they're smiling because they're not getting picked on. What would you like to accomplish in your life? You don't have to tell me right now, but so everyone has a phone. I don't know anybody that doesn't have at least one phone. And you have a way of taking notes. You don't have one? Really? You have, but just not on you right now. Okay. You don't have one. Want to use mine? So if you don't have something to write it down on, just try to have a good memory, and let's take a full minute and reflect on, in this lifetime, what is it that you would like to accomplish? Go. It can be more than one thing too. But if you write it down, it helps to remember. "30 seconds to decide your life mission." There's a few that are still writing, but I think I'm going to proceed anyways. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this whole exercise of the 4 keys of overcoming negative emotions? Part of the idea is to prepare us for the Festival of the Holy Name, where we're going to be striving during the Festival of the Holy Name to absorb ourselves, immerse ourselves as much as we can in that period of time in the Holy Name. And one of the things that distracts us from doing that is negative emotions. And so, if you have a clear idea of what you'd like to achieve, let's say immersion and absorption in the Holy Name, and then make that aligned with some higher purpose of your life. Supposing you don't do that, your focus will be less. Supposing you do that, your focus will be stronger. And then the negative emotions that may be bouncing around in there somewhere about somebody said something, did something, and something, the tendency is for the mind to go to that stuff instead of absorption and immersion in the Holy Name. So that's the purpose of the topic this evening and tomorrow evening and so forth. Okay, so we have a nice idea of what our purpose of life is, and then something else happens. And that's just the way life is. So my expectation was up there, and what the reality was down there. So now, what to do? I like this next example. Supposing you look at embroidery under a magnification lens, and it looks like chaos. But you take the magnification lens away, and look at the tapestry, and it's very nice. Similarly, events in life, when you're doing the micro, it looks like chaos sometimes. We don't see where this fits together with that, fits together with that, fits together with, your mission and purpose of life. But there is a purpose, and if you stay focused on the higher objectives of your life, then there's this nice alignment, and that you remaining patient, that's also nice. Then you can patiently see, why is this happening, and it may start to emerge, oh, that's why it's happening. There's this pattern that's helping me get to the ultimate purpose of life. Krishna is very kind, in other words. It's another way of saying the same thing. Okay. Power of acceptance, power of goals, power of introspection. Introspection. Introspection is a quality of goodness. Introspection is a quality of goodness. Introspection is a quality of goodness. Passion is something else, and ignorance is something else, and introspection is a quality of goodness. So by introspection, how much can we control the circumstances of life? The three modes of nature, that nice painting, we're not in control. We may think that to some degree, we can control. Going back to Viktor Frankl, one thing we can control is something that can't be taken from you by anyone or anything, is the power to choose, even when circumstances are different than what you might like. And the fix-it culture of our modern time doesn't teach us to accept and to be tolerant. So when there's disharmony, it doesn't happen so much in devotee marriages, but it does happen from time to time in devotee marriages. And it's not to say devotee marriages that don't end up that way. There's no disharmony between him and her, and and the kids, and so forth and so on. Just today, one part of the country and another part of the country, I got notices of suicide from somebody that had, a nice young person and another nice young person. They had practiced Krishna consciousness, and two different people, for I don't know what the reasons were, but they had, ceremonies for them. It just wasn't working out. That's really sad. But it's not a solution. Anyway, what can we control? So many things. People do so many things to control, but how much control do we have? Science and technology, it's nice because we don't trash it, but it increases the conviction that we have control over our lives and perhaps even our destiny. But sometimes there's the reality that you start to use something, and where's the brake pedal? Or where's the steering wheel? Or how does this really work? Try being a sannyasi. It's really interesting. Every few days it's a whole new set of circumstances. And sometimes, like with all of what I'm trying to do, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. Anyway, besides being the life of a sannyasi that's trying to make presentations on topics, life, you have your own paradigm, and sometimes things work and sometimes it doesn't work. Because there's a higher order. So this has something to do with acceptance, but when it comes to health, accidents, career, it's a big one for younger generation people. Wow, do they get stressed out over that one? Maybe some of our adults probably do too, but the younger generation, it's a big stressor. So, what can we control? Well, according to Viktor Frankl, you can control your choices, or you can control your own consciousness, which is, you can't control your choices if you can't control your consciousness. So then what's your consciousness? So then there's the alignment with your purpose, and let your consciousness be in alignment with your purpose, and your mind and senses go in that direction. And it doesn't always work out, but you have a something that you're striving to achieve. Fantastic example is our founder Acharya. Reversal after reversal, and he was so determined. Didn't matter. Good fortune, ill fortune, and because his purpose was to satisfy Krishna, Krishna saw and reciprocated like anything. And we're not Prabhupada, but we can learn from that example. Okay, power of goals, and number 5 is power of moving forward. And I think I'm going to need some sound system for this, to associate with positive people. Do we have sound? No. I didn't bring my little box. Okay, here's lightning bug. And the lightning bug tries to go on his own, and he bumps into a tree and he falls down. Then he sees a whole bunch of lightning bugs, and they're doing great. So he decides to join them, and he bumps into a tree. What are you doing? Technology.
Groep verplaatsen heeft zo zijn voordelen. De ingroep verplaatsen heeft zo zijn voordelen. Ontdek alle voordelen van de bus en de tram op de lijn.be.
It's Netherlands advertising public transportation. And here's another one.
De ingroep verplaatsen heeft zo zijn voordelen. Neem de bus of tram naar de wijkparkeerterrein.
There's another one. You should... Penguins. Send it over to me. So one of the things that makes a problem seem bigger and bigger and bigger is obsessing about the problem. Some of you know who Vaisheshika Prabhu is. This is one of his phrases. Where attention goes, energy flows. So give attention to book distribution and you get a lot of book distribution. Where attention goes, energy flows. So when we're having our japa retreat, where your attention goes, energy flows. You want to hear another one? It's before where the attention goes. Where your intention goes, that's where your attention goes. Okay, we're going to have a festival of the Holy Name. What's your intention? Because it's going to drive your attention, which is going to drive your energy. Don't keep feeding negative energy. Bigger and bigger, and it's out of control. So what do you do instead? Have a direction you want to move in, take small steps in the direction you want to move in, and then comes the yeah, but. Yeah, but I try and I don't maintain it, or whatever it is. There's always something, or try it again. And keep, do something that's doable, and small steps, incremental steps, and trust yourself, and by trusting yourself you can learn to trust others, and keep doing some positive things, going in the direction you want to go. I believe in this principle. It's something that I read from Bhaktivinoda Thakur years ago, and I believe I live by it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, I'll say it twice, progress is a series of small steps in the right direction. This other boy, he went away somewhere. Progress is a series of small steps in the right direction. Just make sure you go in the right direction, Prabhus. But you follow our great acharyas, and whatever your personality is, align your personality and the gifts that Krishna has given you with these great personalities as best you can, and get wholesome friends that tap you on the shoulder if you start heading for the ditch and get distracted or something, and stay focused on what's good for you, and engaging in meditation, mantra meditation, reading nice books, we call it wisdom literature for the public, yoga books, and gratitude. Count your blessings. And keep chanting. This is a nice Chaita Darpana Marjanam. Cleansing the mirror of the mind. She's good at it. And by that, the Hare Krishna mantra helps us clear away. It does two things. It clears away the covering and awakens that which is beneath the covering. That's the basic premise for all of us and our Gaudiya Vaishnava teachings, not even just Gaudiya Vaishnava teachings, scripture in general. By nature, we're Satchit Ananda Vigraha, but it's covered. The common example, a seed. Within the seed is life, and the seed can sit in the seed form for a long time. Nature's arrangement, seeds often last a long time, unless you roast them, but you just don't roast them, and the life will stay nice. And then at some point, you can fructify the seed, or sprout the seed. And that's bhakti life. And just keep nurturing it nicely. It's little by little by little by little. However long it takes, that's how long it takes. And you keep nurturing nicely, and gradually it will grow. Cleansing the covering and awakening that which is natural for us. So these are, negative emotions distract us from that purpose. We get absorbed in the thing, and the negative emotion connected to the thing, and forget our purpose. It's really easy. We do it all the time. So let's go back to the 14th, and then we're going to end. Whoops. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. I think I spent more time than I had planned to. Gosh. Any comments or questions?
Krishna Maharaj. When you showed Hamlet, the quote from Hamlet, the question sometimes I get is, when do we accept versus when do we actually fight? Because sometimes we see that, in Krishna fights wars, and so when do, in what situation we just accept things, and in what situation we actually have to fight for things?
If you don't have intelligence, you won't have an answer. And if you have intelligence, you'll have an answer. And where does intelligence come from? Supersoul. So tighten your connection with Supersoul. I was in Atlanta before coming here. And one of the topics I brought up was, there's a rather recent, I forget the dates of his birth, but he departed this world in the 1970s. A Lutheran theologian, I forget his name, but I can look it up. And he said, God, my dear Lord, please grant me the courage to make the change of the things that can be changed, the serenity to accept the things that I can't accept, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. And when I said that, one of the persons in the audience said, that's what the AAA, they use that motto. It's one of the things that they use, depending upon God. So get your God channels straight, and then you'll have the intelligence. Now, what are some factors? The answer to that one is it depends. There's no cookie cutter solution to what do you accept and when you stand and fight. And you can start to say some things, and so you say some things, and then there's, however, there's some circumstances when it's wiser to not say something, do something, and to wait for the right moment to say something, do something. But, that's wisdom. The more you or I or any of us can move towards the quality of goodness in our life, the more likely we're going to be able to brainstorm options when a situation arises. Should I do this, or should I do that, or should I pause? And simply tolerate, for the time being at least. When you're in the mode of goodness, you can reflect more freely. You have more freedom. When the more you get into the passion and further into ignorance, the freedom reduces. The ability to consider options. So go into, when that situation like that arises, go into a reflective space. This introspection was one of the terms that's used. And, what's the situation? Who am I? Assess, and what are some possibilities given the situation and who I am and the persons, and what's going to be most effective ultimately in satisfying Krishna. If you have that compass, you're more likely to get, make a wise choice than if you don't have that compass. And the more you become accomplished at that, you'll have the spiritual strength to do the right thing, as well as the wisdom. So it's not a cookie cutter answer, it's just a principle-based answer. Yes?
Maharaj, is it correct to understand that the subjective experience of negative emotions is also found in pure states of consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like we hear such despondency in the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, such longing.
Yeah.
So it is a negative emotion, however, it is
It's a transcendental emotion. Okay, no, but finish your question. I cut you off.
So the subjective experience sounds the same.
It sounds the same, yes.
However, so it's not that these negative emotions stop at some time, like the waves in the ocean. However, they become completely purified.
Now we're, okay. The topic in general is for dealing with sadhakas, not rasikas. On the platform of spontaneous emotion, spontaneous love, all the full range is there. So here's a snippet dealing with that one. In Nectar Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there are 7 secondary rasas that enhance the primary rasas, and the secondary rasas, some are laughter, but some are sorrow, etc. So what appears to be a negative emotion is actually an ecstasy. So is there a negative emotion in the standard of ecstasy? For sure. Separation of the gopis, for example, or so many examples. A classic is Ramayana, because according to Nectar Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Lord Ramachandra is the deity presiding over sorrow. So there's sorrow and there's sorrow and there's sorrow, but that it looks like what a terrible thing, and so many terrible things, and then another terrible thing, another terrible thing. So, but it's an ecstasy. It's the secondary rasa has a purpose. It enhances the primary rasa. When the primary rasa is enhanced, it's an ecstasy, although it may look like the opposite. The opposite is, it's not an opposite, it's an ecstasy. So when we're ready to have spontaneous devotion, spontaneous attraction for Krishna and Krishna's personality and form and qualities and name, etc., then any emotion with the right center is an ecstasy. But it looks like the other kind, but it's not. Let's say it the other way. The other kind is a perverted reflection of the real thing. There's the real thing, and then there's the reflection of the real thing. The negative emotion that's the reflection takes us away from the purpose of life. That negative emotion that's the real thing, it takes us closer to the purpose of life. It enhances.
The topic was overcoming negative emotions.
Yes,
right?
it was.
But there was one point you made where you talked about right-sizing emotions based on the goal. Be it happiness or like the example you gave of the person who went to MIT and not becoming proud. So is it just obviously we have emotions, but are we toning down both the positive and the negative, considering?
No, it's not toning it down. It's aligning. Alignment is the right word. So, for a devotee, you've seen pictures of Prabhupada receiving the latest publication. Look at his face. It's like it's all lit up. He wasn't downsizing the emotion. Everything stopped, and it was moving his heart. And he lit up like, not just like a Christmas tree, but a bright light. So it's not down, just not dialing down. It's alignment. Your question is similar to hers. It's different, but it's similar. And when the alignment, that's a nice word, when the purpose that Krishna is to be pleased is at the center, then you don't dial down. You dial up, including the feelings of separation or the feelings of hankering or Durdaivam idrisham hajani nanuraga. And then Shiva Padatamara. So see, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going mad. Or sometimes, devotees seem to go through extreme emotion. In elevated states that happens. Now, is that responding to what your question is or not really? Not really, I can tell.
So, we did this exercise of writing our goal.
Yes.
And so we are working towards it, and let's say either it works or it doesn't work. So that the emotion that one may experience when we're working, when it's working or not working against the goal, then that we align. You're saying that we take it as part of working towards.
Yes.
Okay.
The very next slide was, there's the plan, and then below that was reality. And sometimes there's highs, and sometimes there's lows, and sometimes the bridge is out, and we keep going because there's a purpose. It didn't match the plan. That's the acceptance, and combining the acceptance and the goals together. And the Krishna is to be pleased. That's at the heart. So then there's life, or the world of duality, and we're not in charge. We don't control. Make a plan. We have to have a plan. Not overly micromanage the plan, but some plan. And you wait for the plan to manifest at the right time. That's part of a good plan. You have something particular in mind? You're just asking in a broad, general way.
Oh, yes.
You probably have something particular in mind.
This is good for me.
Okay. Another time you can share. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. My question is about the power of introspection.
Okay.
Third key. So I was just trying to understand the 4 keys. In the power of introspection you covered, we are not the controller and we can control only our consciousness. That message, I got it. And I was thinking the difference between the acceptance, the introspection. Introspection is little more internal, or I mean, its acceptance is maybe, I was thinking the introspection is little more detailed, or level of accepting the things that.
Yeah. There's overlap. It's like a Venn diagram that there's some overlap. It's clearly this is over in this bucket and clearly that's over in that bucket and that's it. There's some overlap of these things for sure.
So accepting, maybe it's not like, okay, I need to do it, I don't have choice. But introspection is a little bit more detailed. I was
Yes.
thinking,
Well, it's subject. It's introspecting. One way of making a distinction, because it seems like that's what you want to do, it's looking at oneself and one's relationship with Krishna with a finer refinement of evaluation. There's the acceptance, there's the goal. Okay, I've got my goal. And introspection, it's not happening that way. I'm not in control. So that's, what is my relationship with Krishna like? Here's something that I do. I'm going to end with this. Here's something that I have done for years and years. There's something to be accomplished. And I'm part of that something. And it's not happening. Or didn't seem to be happening. So the introspection for me, one of them is, if Prabhupada was in this situation instead of me, would the situation get better, stay the same, or get worse? Real easy. So now what's the difference between me and Prabhupada? It's purity. So that's where I need to put my attention. That's the introspection. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Maharaj ki Jai.